Well, I'd like to say first that one of my loved ones has cancer, and she's on the Oregon State health care plan, and it's been a lifesaver for her. I think the situation is incredibly complicated. There's a lot of economic factors. Some of them are that government's well-meaning attempts at regulation have created gaps in what the technologically advanced healthcare system we have is able to provide to people of moderate means. One of the most important things to me in healthcare right now is the shortage of trained nurses. And yet, the shortage of trained nurses, for some reason, doesn't seem to respond to the law of supply and demand. The wages are not going up in response to the shortage to the degree that one would expect. And it's because of all kinds of regulation and deals between the insurers. My wife fell off her bicycle. We had an $18,000 bill. Anthem told us, well, the $11,000 helicopter ride we're not going to pay anything for. We said, why? So we don't have a contract with them, with the people who provided it. I said, well, who should we have called while she was in the street? And they said, nobody. We don't have any contracts there. Therefore, we don't have to pay it. You know, the system just is dysfunctional and ludicrously and satirically dysfunctional. I think there's a lot. The insurance companies have stepped in and they have taken advantage of their lobbyists in Congress, and they've created a system where they have almost no answerability, almost no responsibility. I'm glad they're there, but I don't like their I don't like the setup. It's insane. Part of it's government regulation. I believe the free market could deal with it if it wasn't for all the bungling and all the lobbying and all the thievery that probably goes on in the system, and all the stealing from the people at the bottom of the system, like the registered nurses who aren't getting the wages they deserve in this time of shortage.
Sounds like you're a little bit unhappy with the insurance company.
No, not really.
All right, Charlie.
Could I have one real comment?
Sure, go ahead.
Jack reminds me of something that's tangential to this but very important, which is that 50% of all bankruptcies in America are the result of some kind of medical catastrophe that puts people in the same sort of position. He finds himself where all of a sudden you have $18,000. My goodness, how the heck am I going to pay that? I'm just trying to pay the bills. And yet we had a bankruptcy bill come out of this Congress last year which really benefits only the banking industry, and we haven't provided a health care plan for most Americans, and now we're going to penalize them on the other end, on the bankruptcy end, by giving them a bankruptcy system where when they find themselves in that situation because they don't have health care, now suddenly they can't get bankruptcy and get help to get out of it either.
Well, of course, when you allow people to declare bankruptcy on easier than the terms that we implied, or the terms that we put into place with this bankruptcy reform procedure, we all end up paying for that in the long run. When it's easy for you to declare bankruptcy, you and I and the rest of us have to pay for it someplace. There's no free lunch around here. And, you know, the idea, I don't think anybody's opposed to the idea of having everyone covered, having everyone in the United States covered. That's the beauty of that plan in Massachusetts. It says, look, you're going to have it covered. We're going to set up a pool. Now there will be a pool for low-income people that will help subsidize the purchase of insurance. But everybody else will have to have it. And if you don't, there are penalties that are applied to you. I think the state of Colorado and other states should look very carefully at this, because we could reach the goal of, as you've said in the past, universal health care, but without what you've also said, a single payer, which I don't know how else to define that, Bill, if it's not a government health care plan.
All right. Charlie.
Another of the issues you brought up was education. At least two of you are former teachers. The No Child Left Behind legislation will be up for review and revision in 2007, I believe. Does it need fixing, and if so, how? Bill?
Absolutely, I think it needs reform, and that's actually the first thing that I would like to do in Congress, is go up and work with some colleagues, both on the Democratic and Republican side of the aisle, and I already have some folks in mind, to do a fix on No Child Left Behind, keep some of the things that work, but get rid of a lot of things that don't work. And most importantly, I think that we need to give control of education, public education, back to the state and local school boards where it belongs. In this district, we have 5 of the best school districts in America by any measurement. We have the Jefferson County schools, Douglas County, Littleton Public Schools, which I graduated from, and don't hold me as the only highest you can get out of there, but Douglas County and Elbert schools. Douglas County schools can't make it in No Child Left Behind currently, and I'll tell you what, People are upset about that because they know their kids are getting a good education down there. And if the Douglas County schools and the Cherry Creek schools can't make it on No Child Left Behind, there is something wrong with that system, and we need to fix it. But I would go back and say, you know what? We don't need bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. telling us how to run our schools here. We're doing a pretty darn good job of it. What we need is more innovation at the local level, and let's try to figure out the things that work down here and get them up into Denver schools and places like that.
All right, Jack.
I think the No Child Left Behind Act was feel-good horse feathers. It was just...
say that again. It was what?
Feel-good horse feathers.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
It was nonsense.
Haven't heard the two combined before.
It was nonsense of the sort that emerges continually from the bipartisan system in the 21st century. The schools. There are libertarians who don't favor the public school system. And I say my son went to Golden High School. He had 4 years of Russian and was taught history by a Fulbright scholar. What are you trying to tell me, that this doesn't work? It's nonsense. The public schools are wonderful. The public schools work. There's very little wrong with the public school system that more money wouldn't solve, to be honest. I mean, this stuff about we got to cut them, we got to strangle the babe, strangle this monster. The public school system is not a monster. When I ran for office in 1998, I talked to a school teacher, and she said she had 20 years of experience teaching Spanish, had certification as a Spanish language teacher, non-native. She was making $48,000 a year. I didn't have the heart to tell her my son had just started at IBM for more than that.
All right. Well, I think historically, Tom has had a few opinions about education, so let you respond.